We've been told, it's been hammered down our throats. Oh, plant-based eating. Yeah, it's the bee's knees. That's how you get healthy. And my whole life, I've always heard that. Oh, you want to opt for a more plant-based diet. And don't think that's by accident. There has been this move away from meat. And that should make your brain go, why? Why would they be doing that? What is the purpose? It's almost as if you want to keep people sick, you vilify the very thing that will keep them healthy. And I think that's what you're going to hear from Gary in his article. Between the intrinsic cruelty of industrial livestock production and livestock's climate footprint, estimated by the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization to be 14.5% of all greenhouse gases worldwide, significantly greater than plant agriculture, it has become increasingly difficult to defend the place of meat and animal source foods in our diet. I think one thing that the plant-based people underestimate is just how much so many of us in the low-carb keto world also abhor the industrial livestock production. Like, I wish we could get to the place where we use a lot of the ground that we currently use for crops, and we throw ruminants on that ground, and we let them roam, and we let them have grass-fed and grass finished and do all the things to make proper beef production. The problem is a lot of those grasslands are just destroyed by agriculture. And so, yeah, there might be, quote, cruelty with the industrial livestock production. Nobody is arguing that. I don't think any of us like that. I think we love that cows are happy cows and taken care of and treated well, all throughout the processing and everything, all the way to the very end of life until it becomes dinner on the plate. So they act like that's a reason to not eat meat. No, it's a reason not to eat industrialized meat, but there are better ways. And then as far as the climate footprint, 14.5% of all greenhouse gases. Is anybody asking what the rest of that 85.5% is from? 86.5%, 85.5%? Anybody? It's transportation. It's all these cars and buses and planes and all the other things putting things into the environment. So let's stop pretending like that meat is the reason why we have such a climate crisis. No. Jonathan Safran Foer, the novelist turned animal rights activist, may have best captured this kind of thinking in his 2019 book, We Are the Weather, Saving the Planet Begins at Breakfast. He writes, "We cannot keep the kind of meals we have known and also keep the planet we have known. We must either let some eating habits go or we need to let the planet go." It is that straightforward and that fraught. Jonathan, no, it's not. Not even close. It amazes me how all of these attempts to get people to stop eating meat are all based on fear. And this author of this book, obviously a militant vegan, is trying to make meat eating kind of, you're evil if you do it. And this is the way they framed it, you guys. And so those of us that see the value in meat, see the complete protein, see the nourishing nutrients that come in well-produced beef, for example, they're trying to make us feel bad for making that good choice. And they've done it for a long time. When I came on the scene in 2005 to start blogging, they were already out there in full force, and they've been out there unified ever since. So let's continue. And if you just joined us, I'm reading from an article in the Wall Street Journal, got published a few days ago by Gary Taubes. Yes, that Gary Taubes. He's got a brand new book out called The Case for Keto. And so the Wall Street Journal let him write an article, and this one is called The Keto Way: What if eating meat is our healthiest diet? An essential part of this argument is the proposition that animal source foods, particularly red and processed meats, aren't just bad for the planet, but they're harmful to the people who eat them. Michael Pollan famously urged in his 2008 bestseller, In Defense of Food, that is why we should eat mostly plants. He did say that. This has become the lone piece of dietary counseling on which most nutritional authorities seemingly agree. And it creates a win-win proposition. By eating mostly or even exclusively fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, while getting fat and protein from plant-based sources, we maximize our likelihood of living a long and healthy life while also doing what's right for the planet. And this has been my problem with the whole plant-based movement from the start. They make it seem like if you don't agree with them, that you're a bad person. Oh, you don't care about the planet. Oh, you just want people to be sick. And I've seen this on a lot of the carnivore leaders, like social media pages. You'll have people who will chime in and say, oh, you're a horrible human being, talking about, say, Sean Baker, for example. You're a horrible human being for promoting red meat to people. And it's like, okay, you displace what you think about people who eat meat, and now you vilify the very people who promote that way of eating, even though they have very empirical evidence themselves in their own bodies, as well as in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people who have decided to eat that way. And now you're going to vilify them personally just because you disagree with their choices? Come on. But is it that simple? A growing body of evidence suggests it isn't, at least not for most of us. The other movement that has won increased acceptance over the past decade is a low-carbohydrate, high-fat ketogenic diet, Keto for short, which has emerged as a direct response to the explosive rise in the incidence of obesity and diabetes. More than 70% of American adults are now obese or overweight. According to the CDC, nearly 1 in 10 is severely obese and more than 1 in 10 is diabetic. An unavoidable implication of these numbers is that the conventional wisdom on weight loss, see if this sounds familiar, eat less and move your body more, has failed tens of millions of Americans. And this is something that has motivated me in my own work. We have been given an insane protocol when it comes to trying to lose weight and get healthy. I think we can all agree that what we've been doing has not worked, and not worked spectacularly, horribly. Like, I think that's what draws a lot of people into keto to begin with, is they realize, all right, something about what we've been told is not quite right. We don't know necessarily what it is, but we know that what we're doing is not right. And that's what Gary is outlining here. Look, we have to admit that the eat less, move more advice that we've been given ad nauseum since I was a very young kid, that's been the advice that they give out to people to get healthy. It's failed. And if it's failed, isn't it logical to think that there would be options that would pop up that would be a much better alternative than eat less, move more? I would think so. And that's where keto has come into play. And Gary's articulating that. These are the people who, talking about the people who have believed in eat less, move more, and it's failed them. These are the people who sooner or later very well may experiment with alternative approaches, venturing into the realm of what's called fad diets. They can try a plant-based eating, vegetarian, even vegan. And if those don't return them to health, try keto or one of the many variations on low-carbohydrate, high-fat diets, from the original Atkins diet to the South Beach diet to paleo, and even to the latest trend, carnivore. If they find that an unconventional approach works for them, allowing them to achieve and maintain a relatively healthy weight without hunger, that will be their motivation to sustain it. And see, here's the thing. I have long called for, if we're going to have dietary guidelines for Americans, we don't need one set of guidelines. Because what happens when that one set of guidelines fails and fails miserably? People get frustrated. They wonder what's wrong with them. They try to cut calories even more. They try to exercise even more. Where does that lead you? You still don't lose weight. You feel even more miserable. You start getting hungry. You start getting frustrated. And at some point, you just say, F it. And when you get to the effort stage, you go back to binge eating whatever you want. I did that. I did that in 1999. I went on a low-fat diet because that's what you're supposed to do. And I faithfully stuck to that low-fat diet for about 9 months, lost a significant amount of weight. And I was so miserable. I was hungry all the time. I was irritable. I was angry, and I couldn't figure out why. I now know why. Even though I was losing weight, even though my cholesterol came down, even though, quote, my health was getting better, end quote, my mental health was not getting better. I was depriving my brain of fat, which I now know is essential to stabilizing mood and maximizing your cognitive output. Like, all of those things are important. I didn't realize that. I just kept the calories low and I kept the fat grams low. That was it. And when I felt like I was not succeeding as well as I should, I went out and did cardio and did cardio and did cardio. And again, hungry. Oh, well, and I remember some dietitians saying, oh, a little hunger is a good thing. And I'm like, okay, now it's not. Maybe then I believed that, but no. So people get so frustrated that it pushes them to one of these other options. And a lot of people buy into the vegan vegetarian movement because, yeah, they get off the junk food and you feel better. And obviously keto, paleo, carnivore, all the things are doing the same thing. And so I don't know why anybody would poo-poo on someone trying to better themselves regardless of it. So the dietary guidelines should have a paleo version, should have a keto version, should have an all-meat version, should have a plant-based version, and keep the same stupid diet that they have now. All right, guys, here are your options. We have vetted all of these out. Here are the pros and cons of each one. Here's how to do it. And then go see a specialist that specializes in one of these. So then the Dietetics Society could have specialists in each of those diets that you then go see to do it the right way. Why is there a downside to that at all? Why does there have to be any kind of one-size-fits-all diet for all people? That doesn't make a hill of beans sense to me at all. But because this way of eating is most easily accomplished eating animal-sourced foods, they may come to believe that what's good for them and even their children isn't good for the planet. So Gary's talking about, okay, people decide, okay, I feel good when I eat animal foods, but I've heard so many things about it harming the planet, so what do I do with that? Keto diets are based on the proposition that for those who are predisposed to become obese or diabetic, carbohydrate-rich foods trigger that predisposition. That isn't because of the calories that are in there, as the conventional wisdom on obesity assumes, but because of the effect those foods have on your insulin, the key hormone that dominates the regulation of fat storage and fat metabolism. Insulin is secreted mostly in response to the carbohydrates you eat, not just in the forms of sugars, starches, and grains, whether they're whole grains or otherwise, but also from the so-called healthy fruits and legumes, which are all the staples of this well-formulated plant-based diet. He's right. Think about all the things that we've been taught about diets, and very few of them focus on insulin, except for real food-based diets like paleo, keto, and carnivore. Diabetes researcher George Cahill in 1971 in the prestigious Banting Memorial Lecture at the annual meeting of the American Diabetes Association described a process like a switch. When fat cells sense the presence of insulin in the circulation, as Cahill described it, they respond by storing fat and inhibiting its release. That is why you get fatter. When insulin is undetectable, we burn that stored fat for fuel and you get leaner. So the metabolic state of ketosis, from which the keto diet gets its name, happens when carbohydrates are restricted almost entirely and fat provides most of the fuel for the body. The hormonal insulin-centric regulation of fat storage and fat metabolism still remains textbook medicine. Like, see, this is the thing that gets me the most.